Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News. It is Thursday, May 22nd, and greetings from the South Florida Conservative News Service, which we are a part of. If you would like to see more print reports, go to www.southfloridaconservative.com. We are available on BitChute. We are on Rumble. We are on YouTube now because we all got over being banned, and a number of other spots where you can find us. If you like us, please sign up or go to the website and sign up for the newsletter, which is also free. We do not charge for anything. So there you have it. Those of you who are going through the TikToks and the Instagrams, this came up the other day. Unfortunately, we do not have the actual video. If you go to the website, we have other videos that we are talking about in this report, but we couldn't get the other one because on Instagram, if you don't grab it right away, or TikTok, you don't grab it right away. It's beyond my technical capabilities as well as the other couple of people. So that's what you have. But the whole thing of it was a video showing a couple of cows laying around in a field with a woman talking about being a cattle person, okay, and that she was probably going to go bankrupt and lose her farm if something didn't change and blah blah blah. But the real issue that you're going to have with this is she's saying she's out there in Nebraska and that every cattle company in Nebraska is going to go bankrupt because of lack of illegal immigrants to work there, and it's all Donald Trump's fault. And of course, the kicker, and these are in all the new disinformation videos. Well, we voted for Donald Trump, but we never thought it would affect us like this, so we'll never do it again. So when you look at a video and you hear that, and you've had any interest in anything with agriculture, as a number of us have, and we're in Florida, so cattle is a big thing with us here. You didn't know it, but it's true. We're a big cattle state. And you hear anything with this and agriculture, and this follows into the same exact storyline that we have talked about in other things. The major Achilles heel with the United States in almost every industry is that over the years it has just gotten so lazy that you cannot believe that we are able to exist in this country as we do with the amount of illegality and laziness that has occurred in a number of our industries. And this is where people are going to bitch, but you know what? You got to call a spade, right? So this video was disinformation. If you see it come out again, it'll probably be under something similar to a Black Something Lives or somebody like that. It's put out. They should have done something smarter and said we're like Nebraska cattle, save Nebraska cattle or something, but they didn't bother to do that. But it's enough for the average person to look at and say, oh shit, we've destroyed all the cattle farmers in Nebraska. Not really. There are kernels of truth in this, and I'm not coming out as anti-ag because I'm very positive pro-ag, and also the studies go along with what we're talking about. The reason they've targeted Nebraska is theoretically Republican. Theoretically, the major cities in the state are blue. The people that are Republican are mostly rhinos. There is no real MAGA support at all, as a matter of fact. So you have some people that were very, very vanilla, and they were not really following or hoping that Trump was going to be able to succeed. So they were ill prepared for this. The issue with this illegal immigration, and this should tell you something. If you're a person who hasn't had a job or is in an area where you couldn't get work, and you hear that there were 10 to 20,000 jobs available, but they were only giving them to illegals, and you're entry level, what would you think? Okay. The state of Nebraska uses a huge amount of immigrant labor. They are not all illegals. There's a big percentage that are, don't get me wrong. So they have stopped coming to a lot of places to work, which is causing this issue. The thing is, What is today's date? It's May 22nd, right? When did the president take over? When did the president run for office? When did the president say he was going to do something about illegal immigrants? It wasn't yesterday. And this is what we have with the regular industries. It's the same thing. You've had 6 months to a year. This is what they tried to pin on the administration's friends when he told them the tariffs were coming, and people like the Goldman Sachs and everything made tons of money because they structured purchases in the stock market and futures market to reflect the fact that Trump was going to do that. That is not insider trading. That is somebody has stated the obvious that I am going to put tariffs on in 6 days. So you know that 6 days from now, you need to layer your purchases in such a manner to make millions, if not billions of dollars. This industry had no excuse for this going back decades. My good family friends of ours are also in farming. A good family friend of mine also had a very large landscaping company, still does. He had problems with somebody. He employs 300 people that they bring up from Puerto Rico because Puerto Ricans are not illegals. The United States government has a program which needs to be worked on further called the H-2A program. It's like a guest worker program, the same as you would see like other countries have, like Saudi Arabians and everything. Not as vicious as that, but the fact of the matter is you sign the people up, you guarantee they have a certain amount of work, you have to make sure they live in decent places, you have to make sure they have decent food. Look it up yourself. It's called the H-2A. All right. And you do all these things, and they tell you kind of what the pricing is going to be that you're going to have to pay. And then you work that into your budget. And you say, well, that's expensive. Well, the reason that farmers get hit with a lot of low pricing is not their own fault, but certain part of the processes, especially with cattle, the largest cattle company as far as breaking them down is a Brazilian company. They don't give a shit about you, right? The state of Florida is looking into setting its own operations up. I mean, larger operations, so we don't even have to deal with them anymore. So we don't have to ship the cows all the way to the feedlots of the Midwest and Texas. We can ship them directly to the UK where they want to buy the beef. All right. So the 2A program guarantees this certain things for them. And you say, oh, why do you have to get all that? Because if you're using straight up illegals in the agro business, they're living in the back of a bus on some newspapers. They're eating or drinking whatever. They have children with them that are susceptible to rape, robbery, murder. They have women with them that are susceptible to rape, robbery, murder. It is a bad situation. It always has been, but the agro business in general enjoys slave labor. I'll say it to their faces every day of the week. Anybody who supports it, which is usually the Democrats because they can't stop supporting slavery, understands the game. If you know that everybody has to pay $10 an hour for everybody working, that passes on in the price to the next person up who is a middleman 9 times out of 10, not an end consumer. And it should have to be absorbed there. But instead, the middleman is making a lot of money and the end consumer is still paying whatever the end consumer is still paying. That's where they have to look at this economically. And the state of Nebraska, if you look it up yourself, you will not find anybody who's currently in office or anybody in the recent decade. I think I looked back for a decade to find out any agricultural labor or agricultural programs that were developed by the state or the governor or the federal government to address these issues, and they've never been done. And that's everybody. The only time they had a blip was the last time Trump was in, and they were sort of ducking and dodging. But all the Bushes, because of course, why wouldn't they want slaves, right? The Bushes, everybody, Clintons, everybody. That whole administrative cycle, we kept the United States agricultural business weak. All we want you to do is buy fertilizer that you probably shouldn't use, and weed killer that we know causes cancer, and grow one crop that will then turn around and sell to the Chinese. Debate me if you wish. Okay. So when they found out that this was going to be for real, I blame, first of all, farmers. They had to, you have to have self preservation in there, guys. You know, if you knew the old farmers, they were all about self preservation because nobody else was going to help them as they're sitting there with arthritis in every joint in their bodies from the old days when the machines didn't exist and you're out in the dirt all day and your hands look like this, right? So what we've had happen are this is the predicate of it. So what's going on is the Democrats are making hay, as we say, by putting out these videos saying that all this is occurring. Well, first of all, back to the Nebraska issue of going bankrupt. No, they're not. Secondly, they're using footage a lot of times from 5 years ago, which you will see the video on the TSFC website, because you can't put it on here, where they're discussing a massive series of bankruptcies that occurred 5 years ago because of natural disasters and things of that nature. All right. And even NPR or PBS, who put a video out a month ago, you know, looking for this kind of stuff, couldn't get enough to lay a solid glove on the Trump administration. Because one of the farmers even says, yeah, it was kind of my fault. I should have done a little bit more with it. This H-2A program should have been, if you were the congressman or the governor or the senators, you should have been looking at this and saying, what can I do to give myself a probationary period for us to comply with this? And one of the farmers also mentions that the last time they had tariff issues, the federal government came back and paid them the difference in what they lost through the tariff. And that's not even being discussed, right? So what, did it just happen to that particular guy? No, it probably happened to all the states that were involved in this. All right. So this is what we have going on here. And I'm glad I saw it because you have to always watch what the enemy's up to, right? The enemy has to go out and find something, especially to show people that are like East Coast intelligentsia who are like, well, look there, Ludwig, the farms are going to go out. But their market is not the people they already have. Their market is the on the fence Republican who voted for Donald Trump. Because when they go after Trump further, which as you saw Gene Raskin the other day, he's like, we're only 2 votes away. We can start impeaching him. So their intent is to burn the house down as soon as they can and stop anything more from happening. So you will get your slaves back, but your slaves will be able to vote against you in 2 years. You stupid fucks. That's the problem when people get into this racial identity thing and this superiority thing. At some point, they're playing the game with you, but at the other end, which they've already said, is we will normalize and legitimize all these illegals, which means they don't need you anymore. And a state like Nebraska, all they have to do is put enough illegals in those big cities, and your vote doesn't mean anything anyway, right? So wake up. But like I said, the videos themselves don't have any, never show the person. They're smart enough at least to have a white voice on there, because then you right off the bat, you know, I'm sure there is a culturally diverse community out there in Nebraska. In fact, that's in the one video. They were able to find a Muslim to put on this PBS video for whatever reason, right? But she was getting everything for free. So there you go, right? Not that they all are not hardworking people, but this girl obviously was a freeloader. And she was in the education business, right? So this is what you've got to look at. I would say you see these videos, take a look at them for yourself, right? And then figure out what you need to do. But in the meantime, if you are a person living in Nebraska and let's say Senator Deb Fisher or Pete Ricketts or Representative Mike Flood or Don Bacon or Adrian Smith, they've done almost nothing to address the underlying issues, okay? Some of them will mention labor shortages in agriculture. Nobody, none of them, so if there's a town hall, say none of you have launched or championed any serious initiative to transition Nebraska's ranching industry toward legal compliance. You have allowed everybody in the state to break the law for a decade or more. There has been, and this is just for you to mark down on your own, if you're no sustained push to simplify or expand the H-2A program. And there are some things that could be done there. And I'll tell you, one of them is when you look at the things that you have to do to keep these people happy as far as your illegals, first of all, go to Puerto Rico. People can work in Puerto Rico. They're happy to work there. If you have to have a semi-third worldish person to make yourself feel better, go to Puerto Rico. Everybody's great. Love the place, right? Or you can get them from the Mexicans or wherever you want to get them, but they have to be in the H-2A program. What they need now is a company that will do what we have in the Middle Eastern countries, who will handle the bed, the board, the food, and they will drop them off at your office in the morning. You'll swipe their cards and their asses will go to work. After work, they will get on the bus. You'll swipe their card. They will go back to the compound. And at the end of 6 months, boom, they're out of there with all their pay after the appropriate taxes have been taken out. Okay. Imagine that, right? Because now everything in the state of Nebraska, the farmer is going to make more money. And yes, they will. And it's very easy to figure out that if a company at the end says, well, I'm going to lowball these guys because they're putting all this overhead out, now it's time for the attorney general to step in and go to them and say, what are you doing? Are you pushing to bring slaves back? Is that what you want? And you investigate the shit out of them and bang, things change in minutes. Will it change the price of beef? Maybe for a little while, but it will also allow the uncertainty in the market to go out. Because now a farmer knows everything he's doing is right. They all complain that that's too much technical stuff, and there could be, but you know what? Who has done anything to streamline the program? Nobody, right? Because they thought it was just going to continue like this forever. And it can't, man. That's what we're seeing. It can't continue like this forever. Okay. There's been no public campaign to educate the agriculture employers about compliance or the risk of continuing with undocumented labor. All you hear is this bullshit from the Democrat. Oh, these masked men come running into the house and doing this. What, like Elian Gonzalez? A lot of masked men with guns running around that day, right? But that never happened in the Democrat world. So that's that story, right? There's been no effort to secure state and federal, I'm sorry, partnerships or waivers that could ease the legal transition for ranchers. Nobody's doing any of that. There's no legislation that's been introduced to phase out the illegal hiring while providing incentives or support for lawful labor programs. Nobody has done that. And none of the representatives of the people in Nebraska have even given one about it. Okay. So the collective silence you have has not only failed to prevent the current crisis, it may have exacerbated it. Okay. Doing little to nothing, these representatives have allowed ranchers to drift into a trap of their own making. They ignored the storm and they failed their constituents by not preparing them for the obvious policy shifts that would come under tightened immigration. So before you decide to throw out President Trump and his administration for making your life harder, let's think back 10 years when you could have just handled this the right way. They'll say, well, you don't have a dog in the fight. You're not. I have family members. I have friends. I just explained a couple different things that I know about. And you know what? It's always easier to do it because there's always somebody out there who hates on you when you're in business. And they can easily turn. And that's what happened with one of those other fellas. He has, I'll say, almost anywhere from 300 to 500 employees. That was a family legal issue that he had to get in front of. Somebody was going to turn them in for using illegals. Okay. So knew it was coming, addressed the situation, and is better off and more productive ever since. How can you go wrong with that, right? So that's where we stand with this issue. You're going to see a lot of these coming up because the Democrats have nothing to go by So they have to go and say, oh, Trump's done this, Trump's done that. What Trump is doing accidentally in this case is exposing the fact that state and local government in general, swampy in general, has failed the United States citizens, has failed the industries of the United States, the small business and the medium-sized business, has failed them by not keeping them moving in the right direction. The job of the government is to stimulate the economy and stimulate growth. You don't have to throw money at it. You do stuff like this. You make it better for everybody. All right. So that's all I have to say on that. And those of you out there in Nebraska that don't know what I'm talking about, you better figure it out. And if you have these morons that are still running your country, your state, and they're like, well, they're Republicans. So what? So what? Are they doing the right thing? No, right? The reason that they're even out there acting up is because you have drug businesses in your state that were involved in the COVID injections. That's all they give a shit about. There's military bases, there's pharmaceuticals, and the rest of you guys are just window dressing. So get with it and, look into this stuff. We have more detail on these things that you can do, things that you have to look at, this 2HA program, all that on the site. Have a good day. Goodbye.